Welcome into the Important Nonsense Podcast. August 2nd, 32 teams in 32 days, breaking down every team in the NFL, getting you prepped for the 2023 fantasy football season. I am Neil Smith, joined as always by the man with the golden throat, at that FF nerd, Jason Draven. Jason, serenade the people.
You're just jealous. Everybody missed out on Argentina, and so that's what they get. I'm not singing it, but with the fact that Neil's going to be crying throughout the entirety of the show, I just had to make sure I put a smile on his face to start it off. So
it's not even crying; it's just depressing. Also coming back, joining us again, Mike Burland. Mike Burland, how's it going, buddy?
Let's ride. That's all we gotta say. Let's ride. Is that still a thing?
Or Cook? Is it Cook?
Mike is on a roll, going to the penalty box on consecutive days. That's your second trip to the penalty box in 2 days, sir. That's your second trip. I'm gonna start calling it the Mike Burland Memorial Penalty Box here pretty soon.
I'm almost on a streak now.
Put you in for the 2-minute warning.
Well, I think it'd be more appropriate to give him a yellow card, right? We're in that kind of time period. No, okay.
Very possibly. Very possibly. Is that a ladies soccer reference?
It is.
Is that what that was?
Okay. It was. I was trying to make the play.
There's no overlap between
not
those
playing
two
a match.
audiences. Okay. Any of the people that watch this show are not watching ladies soccer. I just got to tell you, there's no bleed in that audience whatsoever.
Not waking up at 4 a.m. with me? Okay, that's cool.
No. More likely that I'd still be awake given the time zone difference between what you're talking about and where I live. With that, if for those of you blessed with the ability to read and the curse with the ability to read in this case, we are here to break down the Denver Broncos. That is historically not really a sad event. This year remains to be seen. Couple PSAs as always. The rankings that we are referencing primarily come from the Fantasy Pros ECR. Obviously, if we're talking about our own rankings, we will reference that on the front end. Same thing with the ADPs. We are a Fantasy Pros affiliate, and we enjoy being a Fantasy Pros affiliate. Happy to be part of the team. The depth charts that we reference come courtesy of Player Profiler. And shout out to Jack. Hope you're well, buddy. This is all based around 12-team PPR, aka God's format. It is redraft focused. Obviously, we will have some nuggets for other formats along the way, but primarily that's what this is for. Again, it is to help you get acclimated to the rosters for each team in the NFL so that you can make informed decisions for your league come draft day. Today is the 2nd of August, and if that way, the reason we point that out is if any of this sounds dated, tune in to the live stream on the 1st of September, where we will be updating any takes that need updating and also just chopping it up and BSing around with our usual Thursday night audience. Jason, I'm hoping that we get a lot of our returning regulars coming back. So be on the lookout for that. We will have details as we get a little bit closer to that date. But for today, like I said, we're going to talk about the Denver Broncos. We'll start with quarterback. Let Russ cook. Do we let Russ cook? How do we feel about Russ? Jason, I'm going to start with you. Are you going to let Russ cook?
I mean, he has good options, but I guess if you're like me and waiting on quarterback, it's fine. I still think there's other options I'd rather prefer based on his ADP of 126. Not ideal. But yeah, I mean, I just hope he can kind of boost up the wide receivers and hopefully Javonte Williams, who surprisingly has made it through without being on the pup. So I'm curious to see how that ends up too. So it could very well see how he does for his weapons.
Fair enough. Mike, any enthusiasm for this topic whatsoever? Or any words of caution?
Just more, is Russ cooked is my motto this year for the Broncos, because I think there's a good chance he's just not good anymore. And I think we're kind of hoping, best case scenario, like Jason said, he just kind of props up some of these fantasy relevant guys around the team. But I will say, I mean, I don't know if you mentioned ADP, but 126, QB 18. After that, if for whatever reason, like if you don't have a quarterback yet and he's all that's there, after that, it does get a little scary, like Bryce Young and Kenny Pickett, and I mean maybe Stafford or Carr you want to take a chance on, but if you've done something wrong, I think if Russell Wilson's your or something's gone wrong in your draft if Russell Wilson's your QB1. So I'm just avoiding.
Totally punted quarterback if he's your starting quarterback. So yes. So when I pulled this yesterday, it fluctuates a little bit every day, right? So when I pulled it yesterday, Russ was coming in at the QB 17, roughly 125 overall. That's what that translates to. He's going at an ADP of 126, so the public is largely in line with that. You're talking about that's a middle 10th round pick, really. It's more like 11th round. It's actually an 11th round pick. See, that's normally where I'm excited about trying to take a quarterback for my usual draft strategy type of deal. The problem is this year quarterbacks are flying out the door. If you're going to wait till that late in the draft, the Kirk Cousinses of the world have sailed more than likely. You've missed Daniel Jones. You're way down the page. And I agree with you. If Russell Wilson is your starting quarterback, at that point, just embrace the punt. Don't even bother with Russell Wilson. Just fully punt it.
I don't know, man.
Go.
Sorry, I'm pulling up his schedule. In his first week, I'd be interested to have him versus the Raiders.
Okay, that actually might be okay. Yeah, that's a good start. That's a good start.
And then you can dub him.
You're falling for it again.
Yeah, that's
what
the
we said
problem,
last year. Oh, he's against the Seahawks. Week one, he's gonna.
They're terrible, and then they lose the game, and it's the Raiders probably will be terrible. We'll get into that during the Raiders show. Like I'm very much a believer in the Raiders will be terrible. I'm also kind of a believer in the Broncos are going to be terrible. But as it relates to Russ, it is in many ways kind of the last pony in the stable, as it were. Yeah, that's right. We're just going to do, hey, if he's doing the Russ cooked jokes, I'm just going to do we're just going to throw out all pretense, and it's just going to be all the bad jokes. But I would rather at that point kind of just punt the position. Or if I was going to wait that long and you didn't want to punt the position because you're afraid, then you want to get a Russell Wilson in the 11th, and then you kind of want to like double tap it and get a Stafford or something like that. You know what I mean? You want to get a quality backup because there's a decent chance this could blow up. Like I would not want to be getting Russ and then waiting all the way down for like a Brock Purdy, like several rounds. That's scary. So it's either you commit to the punt and you just say, screw it, I don't want Russ. I'm going to get Bryce Young and Kyler. You know what I mean? And you go you embrace it all the way down, or you go Russ and then you wrap it around with like a Stafford, maybe an Anthony Richardson if that's what floats your boat. But Richardson's going to be a whole topic when we get to the Colts show.
But if you can drop him and pick up Richardson in week 2, the Colts play Houston, and you know how much we love that one.
Fair enough. If you're going to stream quarterback, I feel like you should wait even longer and not burn an 11th round pick on it. But okay, you can't. You're not just cutting 11th round picks typically. If it was a 15th round pick, I'd understand. But 11th round, you're talking about something you're probably going to try to hold on to.
What's in the 11th round though?
What's that?
What's really in the 11th round though? That you're.
Do this. We'll do that if you want. We'll do it right now.
That's why I'm like,
Russell Wilson.
Yeah, it depends on what's really there because I think it's going.
11th round: Darnell Mooney, Sky Moore, Jameson Williams, Tyler Boyd, Zay Jones, Dalton Schultz, Anthony Richardson, Elijah Mitchell, Odell Beckham Jr., Greg Dulcich.
So Richardson and Dulcich.
Depends how you feel.
That list. Yeah.
Depends how you feel about Darnell Mooney coming back with some help. In the form of DJ Moore. Depends how you feel about Jameson Williams. It's a very polarizing figure, even though he's suspended for 6 games. I don't necessarily buy it. Sky Moore is a very polarizing figure. So is Zach Charbonneau. You've got a lot of very polarizing figures. So it depends how you feel about some of these individuals. Like, I don't care about like Odell.
He's trying so hard to hop.
I nearly had to go.
Got the NSFW coming in strong
I nearly had
here.
to go into the editing bay for myself. I had to catch that halfway out of my mouth. Like
Can
I'd
we
be all right. I'd be
afterwards?
all right with Sky Moore at that level. I'd be okay with Zach Charbonnet. Jameson Williams with a 6-game suspension doesn't really float my boat. If I was desperate, I might be willing to go for a Tyler Boyd if I completely got, upended at wide receiver. You and I will talk probably at length later on in the show about Greg Dulcich. I'm fully wheels up on the Greg Dulcich train. It's actually the one thing I'm excited about. And you know me, I don't give a single crap about tight end that isn't named Travis Kelce, but Greg Dulcich might be interesting for a couple reasons we'll get into a little bit later, especially because it's not expensive. But that's why I'm saying if we're down here, I'm not just cutting some of that. If I'm spending an 11th round pick on it, it's probably going to be on my team for a little while. I mean, it's not that insane if you want to cut him, but why would you waste a pick in the 11th round to stream Russell Wilson and then Richardson? You know what I mean? You're probably holding on to some of that stuff. The real streaming options don't start until you get down to like, what's his name? Brock Purdy, Ryan Tannehill, Sam Howell. That's the real streaming options because that's the stuff that's not really being drafted. Because Kyler down to QB 24 is Kyler Murray. That's when things are being drafted still. So you're talking about things after Russell Wilson that are still being drafted: Anthony Richardson, Matthew Stafford, Derek Carr, Jordan Love, Kenny Pickett, Bryce Young, Kyler Murray. Those are drafted pieces, so you can't really stream in that way early in the season. Now, later on, some of that'll get cut. But you're talking about real streamers to open the season: Brock Purdy, Ryan Tannehill, Sam Howell, CJ Stroud if he's starting, Jimmy Garoppolo, Mac Jones. Any of that float your boat? Sam Howell, if I was insanely desperate, I guess.
I mean, if he runs like he did in college, maybe, but yeah,
None of that does it for me.
Exciting. No.
So this is part of the problem with quarterback this year is that because the top end is so inflated, it's pushing up the prices of everything. We're living in a world where Trevor Lawrence is a 5th round pick. I'm not suggesting that you do that. I'm just telling you what you're going to be drafting against, right? So it's like if you either have to commit to the idea that you're going to wait, and then you're probably going to be stuck with a Wilson Richardson stack or a Wilson Stafford stack for the more conservative among us, or a Wilson Carr stack for the even more conservative Honda Civic driver. That's not even Honda Civic. That's Honda Accord. For the in the khaki pants. That's full khaki pants in your Honda Accord. You have no imagination. That's your stack right there. That's kind of what you're looking at. But those aren't things that you're just going to cut and reacquire. That's how messed up this is, man. It's a messed up world we live in for a lot of reasons. So I think really the big thing about Russ is that you're not excited about it. I probably am not interested for an 11th round pick unless I'm deeply. If it was me, knowing how I am and how I roll, punt it. Go big. Wear your ovaries on the outside. Do big things. Punt it and go even lower. Go get Derek Carr and Bryce Young and see if you can catch lightning in a bottle. Let's do it. And just completely punt quarterback entirely, and then stream it if you want. Do that, or man up and spend a 9th round pick on Kirk Cousins to get something that you actually
Jared
want.
Goff at?
Jared Goff goes slightly ahead of that. 115. So it's basically a round higher.
Yeah. That
okay. So
that would be.
You could spend a 9th round pick on Daniel Jones or Kirk Cousins, or you could spend a 10th round pick on the golfer. And if you wait past that, you're talking about Russell Wilson and Anthony Richardson in the 11th round pick in the 11th round. That's what you're looking at. That's your life. I don't like any of it. I don't like my life if I'm down that far. So is anybody excited about Russell Wilson it doesn't sound, I think we've got consensus on the idea that nobody's excited about Russell Wilson in and of himself, right? Nobody's believing in the bounce back season for Russ where he might be able to get back to top 10 quarterback form, because that would theoretically be the ceiling. We've seen him do it. Does anyone believe he can
Nah,
recapture that magic?
I don't think so. I think a lot of that had to do with his rushing ability, and I think that's basically gone. I'd be very shocked if he was top 10. I think something horribly went wrong with a lot of the quarterbacks this year if Russell Wilson's top 10.
Well, had he not lost a wide receiver, I probably would have him in the top 12. But
for the love of criminal,
you love it.
We're
You
gonna get
love
into
it.
it. We'll get it. We'll get there when we get there. We'll
I
work
know.
our way. We'll work our way to that particular take that I was subjected to in our Discord. Sign up for our Discord, by the way, at fourthwall.com/important nonsense. And you too can get Jason's hot takes blasted directly into your face.
All day, every day. I continue
all day, every day, whether you want.
Nobody
them or
talks
not.
to me, but I will.
Oh no, they talk to you. It's just quiet right now because we're not in season. During the season, they'll talk to you.
That's
and
fair.
PF Brand would be horribly offended to hear you say that. Horribly offended. Like, shout out to PF Brand, by the way. We love you. Okay. So within that, no one is buying the narrative coming from Sean Payton that he's going to mandate that Russ runs more this season, right? No one's buying this. Doesn't sound like it.
Based on the running back he brought in, no.
These takes are
you love
eyebrows.
You love it.
Singed. Like it's well, we'll get into what Jason means by that here if it's not immediately obvious here in a moment. Okay, so nobody's really excited about Russell Wilson. So then the conversation, his backup is Jarrett Stidham. We've all seen that movie before. No, thank you for the former Boise State product on that. I am good on Jarrett. Like, no,
is
no,
Kendall
thank
Hinton
you.
still there?
He is still there. Kendall Hinton is still there. We will get into Kendall Hinton possibly in a minute. There is the narrative that Sean Payton is trying to push that he's going to make Russ run more, unlike what Hackett wanted him to do last year. So if that was to happen, the theoretical ceiling is still top 10, but that's, like I said, there's a word in there that's very important, and that word is theoretical. So no one, I don't think, is going to really expect that and is building that into their game plan for Russ. So the question really becomes, can Russ recover to a point where he could be a mid-table quarterback and not tank out the entire team and all the skill position players, which is very much what he did last year. That's why you're getting such a discount. That's one of the things that you're going to notice about this as we go through this, gentle viewer, is that last year, the Broncos, everybody was paying these crazy inflated prices. The Broncos last year was like GameStop stocks. You're paying like to the moon in 2022. And now you're talking about this is Bed Bath & Beyond stocks. It's pennies on the dollar is what you're getting this year. It's very affordable. So this is the bargain bin, especially if you're still looking at last year's prices. So Russell Wilson in the bargain bin, very much a discount option. Let's go through it here as far as the running backs go. Javonte Williams is still the RB1. As was mentioned, he has managed to somehow avoid the PUP list despite completely destroying his knee last year. And I'm not talking about a clean ACL tear. I'm talking about ACL, MCL, all the ligaments. He blew up his knee for the second year in a row. He blew up his knee and has somehow managed to recover in such a way that Adrian Peterson would be jealous, because this man in less than a year has managed to get back for training camp and no PUP list. He's out there. He's not even being limited in drills. Every camp report is that they're not even limiting him. He's just going out. I am shocked by this information, because if it was me, I'd still be laid up on my couch on painkillers. Like, can I have some more Flintstones chewable morphine? Like that's going to be me. Like that man's nuts. He's like the Wolverine. So he's back out taking contract. What's interesting about this is Javonte Williams, RB26 in the rankings, translates to about 71 overall. ADP is 72. The public is in line. Last year, there was a lot of people, idiots, whose name I'll leave off of it, who don't work here, but who are fixtures in the, we'll call it, local sports media. We're talking about Javonte Williams going to get the whole job to himself. He's going to be the workhorse. He's going to get all the carries. That doesn't work that way. And especially not in a Nathaniel Hackett offense. Anybody who's watched a Hackett coach team at any level knows that they're not going to do that. They're going to run a 1A, 1B scenario. It's a committee. It's usually a two-headed giant. That's how it works. That's the Hackett system. This system is different. We're not going to be dealing with the Nathaniel Hackett system anymore. It's the Sean Payton system. Sean Payton, I've seen Sean Payton go ahead and have a bell cow. It's going to depend a lot on Javonte Williams' health, and it's going to depend a lot on what you can get out of who they brought in behind him. A young man named Samjae Perine. RB 37 in the rankings, 106 overall, ADP is 98. Public's a little bit bullish on this. Samjae had a great season in Cincinnati last year. They inexplicably did not want to pay him. I don't know why. And so he finds his way to Denver on what is actually a very reasonable contract to spell Javonte Williams. Gentlemen, is this a Williams Melvin Gordon 2.0 split, or is this a Samjae Perine is just a backup?
I think it's more of the 2.0. I mean, dude's just built like a horse. The 5'11", 240. He has that 20 extra pounds of muscle to just eat up ground and go into the end zone. Honestly, I'd go closer with the Kamara Ingram of
yesteryear.
Well, Sean Payton. That's why I went with it. I mean,
I'm not telling you you're wrong.
That's more of what I see, because Samjae can also catch it. Like he is that full rounded back, but
what did he catch? 40? Did he catch 40 balls last year?
Yes. Let me see.
It wasn't
50,
quite. 50,
he caught 38. So
38.
So close.
Oh, I knew it was right in the neighborhood of 40 balls. It's more than Derrick Henry caught.
And 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. But he's not a nothing when it comes to pass catching. You are correct.
Yeah, he definitely has a skill set to do it. And I mean, we saw that he could actually survive a full year too. So that's another kind of big tick in his favor, is that even if he is just spelling Williams, if he does get hurt, Perine is able to just take that full job and has nobody to worry about behind him. So it's tough.
Mike, I've seen a lot of nodding. Break it down for us.
Yeah, I think, again, the history of Sean Payton, I remember hearing it was like almost every year that he was the head coach at the Saints, they had like a top 5 running back fantasy room. You know, Pierre Thomas and Darren Sproles and
oh god, we're gonna get in the time machine.
Reggie Bush. I mean, Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. So he's shown in his offense he'll support 2 guys, maybe not to the extent where it's going to be exact 50-50. It could be 65-35, but I still think there's going to be enough there for both guys to be relevant. I like where both of them are going right now. I'm always hesitant about running backs coming off, or any player really coming off these major knee injuries or Achilles injuries their first year back. But it is good that he's there, and he's not just not on the pup. He's taking contact. He's full go, like you said. So I like them both.
Pads. I can't believe it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And Samjae Perine, I actually went back and did some research since 2020. Every game where he had at least 10 touches, he was like a top 24 running back in almost every game. And a lot of those were like top 10 finishes.
He's not bad.
When he gets 10 touches, now he only had like 7 or 8 of those, but he's pretty good when he gets the touches. And I think even if he is the backup, I would be very, very surprised if he doesn't get 10 to 12 touches a game on average. So I think if he is more of that pass catching guy and the Kamara light kind of, he's not going to be Alvin Kamara, obviously, but if he is that and Javonte's more of the Ingram, they can both succeed. We've seen it. We've seen them both succeed. So I like them both at ADP. And there's the upside if one of them goes down, like Jason said, who's behind them? Not much. It's going to be
well. So we'll close it out. The other thing that folks who are familiar with the old Saints teams will notice as we go through this, a lot of former Saints in Denver now, a lot of them, and it starts pretty much now. So they also have Tyler Batty, who's just a little guy. Tyler Batty's just a little guy. He catches passes. He's not draftable. Nor would I even argue he's really rosterable at any level unless something goes badly wrong. So there's no reason to worry yourself too much about that. They also have Tony Jones. And folks who know those old Saints teams will know who I'm talking about. Alvin Kamara's former backup, Tony Jones Jr., is now hanging on to the edge of the roster in Denver. I bet he makes the team because I think they're only going to carry 4 running backs, and I bet it's those 4 guys. That's probably who your final roster is going to be. My take on it is this. I'm not thrilled about having to spend a late 6th round pick on Javonte Williams. But that being said, they've baked in some of the risk at that ADP. My bigger issue with Javonte has been when they wanted him to go, when people were trying to take him in the 2nd round, early 3rd. No, absolutely not. End of the 6th. Okay. You can make this argument, but this is one of those ones where we talked about yesterday that there's no handcuff in Dallas. In Denver, to me, I would prioritize making sure that I got Samjae Perine because his ADP is 98. So you're talking about you're not talking about having to spend that much. Not that much. Not really. Like it's
in an area that you're fine grabbing him.
You're talking about, in reality, that's an 8th. It's a top of the 9th round pick, roughly. So if I got to take him in the 8th, fine with this. It means I get to stack. I'd rather spend my 8th round pick than have to pay through the nose to somebody later on when I'm trying to go to the playoffs. Or I'm screwed and I got nothing. Because that's going to be the most expensive thing in the universe because they know that you're going to be desperate. So I'd much rather roast an 8th round pick and get the stack in this regard rather than deal with it, especially depending on how your team gets constructed. You know what I mean? If you waited on running back because you were prioritizing grabbing those wide receivers early before it dries up, you could probably justify this because you're probably set at wide receiver. You've either already taken a quarterback or you're waiting. Tight end, you've either taken Kelsey or you're waiting. So what's my downside?
Yeah. At this point, you've filled up your roster.
If I'm going with Javonte, I want Samjae, and I don't care if I got to spend up a round early in the 8th round to make it happen. Fine with that. I'll live my life, no regrets, as the kids say. Like I'm good with it. An 8th round pick ain't that big of a deal. You can't lose your league on whoever your 8th round pick is. It's not really possible. Like you damn sure could lose it on the 2nd round, on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd round though, which has been my argument with Javonte in previous years. I still think it's a little expensive. I would prefer Javonte dropped about a round in ADP. But the problem is that when he didn't go on the pup, it started rising. So now he's at the end of the 6th. My concern is that by the time you sit down to actually do your draft, Labor Day weekend or the weekend prior, like we always tell you to, he could be a 5th round pick. And now I'm getting itchy. Now I'm all nervous again. I don't like it. I don't like when we're getting that high, especially with running back being deflated to the point where it's like 5th round running back, man, I can get a lot of quality options in the 5th round. So
yeah, that's the big thing is I was just looking at, who he's going around running back wise, David Montgomery.
Yeah, that's the big one for me. David Montgomery.
Alvin Kamara, whatever. We don't know.
We'll see what his suspension is, and that'll change.
Yeah. So, but I am much more in on, if I can get him late 6th, 7th round, these guys coming off major. I think it was last year. It was like Dobbins. I feel like he was going in like the 4th or 5th round. Just what are we doing?
Yeah, that's too high.
What are we doing?
It's too high. Yeah. And that's why if he starts creeping back up to that level with Javonte, because people get on the hype train, stay off it. End of the 6th, cool. I'd make sure I prioritize getting Samjae. We're good. We live with it. Starts getting more expensive than that, I start looking for the exit. The wide receiver room is actually largely what people who've been playing for a while would know. And for those who are new, we'll go through it. The wide receiver one is Jeudy. Jeudy's going as the wide receiver 23 overall. That translates to about 48 overall. His ADP is 58. That seems very reasonable to me. Jeudy was dealing with 3 separate injuries throughout last year. However, when he was healthy, he was a borderline top 10 play. Russell Wilson and he and Russell Wilson developed immediate chemistry, and I can see why. Because Jeudy plays a game that Russell Wilson will gravitate towards. He's a very polished route runner. That's the thing that Jerry Jeudy can hang his hat on, is that he's maybe not the fastest guy that's ever existed, but he will play until he's 40 because his route running is incredible. That's just what it is. And he is open when he needs to be. And Russ can depend on it. His hands have gotten better. He doesn't have the best hands, but he's clearly been working on it every year. So he's a better catcher of the football. You
can always put Stickum on it. It's not that big a deal.
Sure. I don't have too much of an issue with Jerry Jeudy in the 4th round. 3rd round, I get a little itchy. 4th round, I'm okay.
Yeah, but realistically, that's who you really want for the wide receiver room at this point. So, I mean, it's fine. I'm worried that with the Patrick news, it's going to go.
No,
I know.
Don't talk. We'll talk about that in a second.
I know, but I think it's going to go up even more, and so that's even more disturbing.
I don't know. Maybe.
I agree.
Actually, what do you think? I'm going to look up whether his ADP is rising or falling, Mike, while you talk about
whether it's going to rise or not because it's Tim Patrick, not sure. I do think you're going to get either a Broncos fan that is completely buying in to Sean Payton and the Broncos this year.
I think it's just Broncos fans more likely that they will stay far away because they don't want to deal with it. That's
someone in your draft is going to my opinion, and it's kind of the case, I think, with a lot of these Broncos players is so they're all going to buy into the Sean Payton turning it around, and I think they're all going to go a little bit higher than where I want. I do like Jeudy this year. I like Jeudy this year. He won a lot of people fantasy championships. He was a top 3 receiver, I think, during that time. And that's another thing. You're going to have someone in your league who won a championship because of Jerry Jeudy, and they're going to probably take him in the 3rd round. I think he goes 3rd round more often than not.
That's his ADP is pretty stagnant right now. It's gone up 1 spot in the last weeks, and we'll need another week for the information to fully flow about Tim Patrick. Before we get into Tim Patrick, they do still have Courtland Sutton, subject of a million trade rumors. I love Courtland Sutton. I make no apologies for this. At this point, I think we can kind of tell he's never going to be the same player he was before the knee injuries. He just doesn't have that top end speed that he used to have, and I don't know that it's ever going to come back. Probably not at this point. But Courtland Sutton is a big dude who can body up on a football. He can high point a football, and he had a brutal season last year. Every metric that we have, next level metric, it's not his fault. He was getting targets. Those targets were in the dirt or over his head or in the stands, hitting the nacho guy because Russell Wilson was just completely out of sorts and had no idea what he was doing. So it's hard for me to really blame Courtland Sutton for the season that he turned in. And that is also being baked into his ADP. He's ranked as wide receiver 41. That translates to 97 overall. His ADP is 105. The public is skittish about this. So you're talking about what is in reality a end of the 9th round pick for Courtland Sutton. I have no issue with this. If Jerry Jeudy's going in the 3rd, 4th round, I think he should be really going in the 4th. But if he's going in the 3rd, whatever. Argue semantics if you want. But that sounds about right for Courtland Sutton because he will be the wide receiver 2 on this team. I find it very unlikely that he will be traded. If that was going to happen, it was going to happen already. I know the Patriots were kicking tires on it. That would have been interesting. There were a few other teams that were interested, but the Broncos won a 2nd round pick. You ain't getting a 2nd round pick for Courtland Sutton. That's never going to happen. I want all kinds of things I'm never going to get, gentlemen. I want a solid gold toilet. Never going to happen.
Spray paint might make it happen for you.
No. See, if we were going to do that, then what I want is that toilet that's like a giant skull.
Okay. We're not going to Jerry Jones' house. It's not happening.
Look, Jerry Jones likes to take a spooky dookie, okay? That's the reality of it. Thank you. Good night. I'm out of here. I've hit my apex with spooky dookie. It's the funniest thing I've ever said. Thank God it was on camera. Thank God it was on camera, folks. There it is. That's the high water mark for me. I'm done. I'm retired. Jason, you're in charge from now on. I'm out. I'm out, folks.
Right into the tank. Here we go.
This is why they tune in on Thursday nights for Roster of the People, is for this level of quality. The humor just never stops.
Only 35 minutes to mention Dookie in the Broncos episode, though. It's pretty impressive. So
yeah,
took longer than expected.
Yeah, it should have been in the first 3 minutes. I'm fine with Courtland Sutton at that relative ADP. Look, you're not going to be like, oh, I just won my league. But the rumors of his death have been greatly exaggerated. What we should have been doing at this point is talking about Tim Patrick. Well, pour one out. Because
again, man.
Tim Patrick, for the second year in a row, tore his ACL at training camp and is out for the season.
Well,
that will
Achilles,
not Achilles, not ACL. ACL is last year, Achilles this year.
Achilles this year, which is actually significantly worse, considering he's 29, will turn 30 in November, and this will conclude his run with the Denver Broncos. New regime. He needed to get healthy and get on the field to prove that he still has it. As far as I'm concerned, Tim Patrick droppable in all formats. Not draftable, obviously. Droppable in Dynasty. Don't need to roster him. I have a feeling he'll catch on somewhere, assuming he can come back next season. I'm sure the Houston Texans will very much enjoy having him on their roster, and we'll see if he can finally get healthy. But there's no reason to roster Tim Patrick at this point. And it sucks. Because I, like you, Jason, I've seen he was coming off back-to-back years of 750 yards and 5 touchdowns. You're waiting for the breakout. Tears his ACL, tears his Achilles. His career might be over.
Yeah.
His Bronco career certainly is.
It's just tough, man.
Glad he got paid.
Yeah,
that is.
I'm glad he did get paid, and he'll get a nice, tasty cash settlement on his way out the door. And hopefully, he's got a new career lined up doing something. So he might be able to milk 1 or 2 more years out of this, but it will not be in Denver. And like I said, it's not really worth rostering in any format at this point.
So with that in mind, who are we looking at for replacement? Do you think anybody can really step up there? Before we get into that
position group, before we get into that, they also they NFI'd non-football injury released KJ Hamler. So that's one of their other deep threats down the field is no longer going to be with the team. So suddenly this room,
because that's a heart thing, right?
It's a heart condition. They're hoping that he can get it corrected and then they can actually re-sign him. But there's no guarantee on that. So Hamler is going to go do some extensive medical testing for a very serious condition that is treatable. It's a treatable condition. He could come back, but we don't know. What we know right now is that he's not going to be on the team to start the year. He's not going to have any camp, and he's already been waived. He's off the team. So he's gone. It's a shame because KJ Hamler is a very young guy. He's not 29. He's not 30-year-old Tim Patrick made his money in the league. KJ Hamler is on his end of his rookie deal. He's not part of this regime, so we'll see what happens with Hamler. That being said, the only 2 wide receivers that have an ADP are the people we just covered, Jeudy and Sutton. And with them losing 2 wide receivers in camp, it actually makes me feel better about Jeudy and Sutton just on the face of it. You know what I mean? You can't predict injuries. So who's coming to take their job? Because I'll give you your list of options of who could come and take their job. I'll give it to you right now. First on the list would be Marvin Mims. 2nd round pick. Denver traded up to get him in this year's draft. He looks a lot like KJ Hamler. A lot like KJ Hamler.
Which is a very important role in Sean Payton's offense, like a Devery Henderson type of role to stretch the field.
You go straight. I was going to say, who's the guy from last year that they had?
Rashid Shaheed.
Thank you, Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah.
I was going to go with a more current example. You go right back to 2010. It's unbelievable.
It's the golden years.
No kidding. Devery Henderson. Nobody has thought about Devery Henderson since 2012. That's unbelievable that that's the poll you come back with. That is crazy.
But yeah, valuable role. And yeah, like you said, they traded up for him. Not only did they trade up for it, Marvin Mims, he was their first pick in the entire draft. So they have a seemingly, this is when they had Jeudy, Patrick, Courtland, Sutton, a seemingly pretty KJ Hamler, a deep receiving room.
Yeah, Patrick, everybody. They had the whole band, the whole crew was there.
I kind of like Marvin Mims. I liked him, his tape out of college. So I think there's something there. First year, though, I don't know. We're going to have to see.
Well, there's no ADP.
Yeah, he's free.
You get him on the waiver wire.
Yep.
So Marvin Mims is interesting only to me for that reason, that my investment is nothing. It's whatever I have to cut to get him. Maybe he develops an ADP as we get closer to. He's one to watch in training camp. That's who I want to see in training camp because he's going to be out there. They've already said he's going to be playing these preseason games. He's playing. So you're going to get a taste of what Marvin Mims looks like. Definitely a name to know because in this offense, you're going to have Courtland Sutton is going to be the Michael Thomas role. Middle of the field, shorter yardage, red zone targets. That is going to be Courtland Sutton. He's going to be doing that job. And Jeudy is going to be the Chris Olave role. The true one. Running that part of the kind of the Sean Payton scheme type of deal. Mike, do you want to give me like a 10-year-old reference on who Jeudy would be that isn't Chris Olave? Because that's too current for you. It's not hipster enough. It's not. No. Yeah, thank you. Marcus Colston. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. That's from 2009. I love it.
Yep.
So yeah, you're going to have
receiver, I think.
Yeah, Jeudy's going to be in the Colston role. Sutton will be Michael Thomas effectively. And I will say this, Courtland Sutton, when Sean Payton came in, the first thing he did was he actually had the film room cut up Michael Thomas's tape from going back for the last, from the Sean Payton era for 5-6 years or whatever, and provide that to him because it's pretty much he knows what his job is going to be. They want him to be Michael Thomas. Big body, get open in the red zone, run the short yardage stuff, work the middle of the field. Can he do it? I don't know, but that's what they're going to have him try to do. So you also know that I referenced, those of you familiar with Saints, more recent Saints teams will just recognize some names. Other names on the Broncos wide receiver room. Marquez Callaway. Who did he play for a long time? Lil Jordan Humphrey. Who did he play for and get his start with in the NFL? Sean Payton knows what he wants, and he wants to get the band back together, and he's doing it, dadgummit. And the last one is Kendall Hinton, Jason. Like a bad penny. You'll never get rid of Kendall Hinton on the Broncos.
Well, after putting him at quarterback, it's hard not to.
He's done nothing wrong.
I know.
Kendall Hinton has done nothing wrong. He has done everything they have asked him to do, even when it's deeply unfair. Yeah. Kendall Hinton does not get enough credit for the amount of BS that he puts up with. And I have nothing but respect for Kendall Hinton having to play quarterback for them on no notice and then coming back the next year and making the team as a wide receiver. And the fact that he's still there through a new regime. The man is not the best football player I've ever seen by any stretch of the imagination, but he is a good team guy. He's very much a good locker room team guy. You want guys that'll put up with some stuff, and he definitely does it. So, realistically, the two guys that you'll be drafting are Jeudy and Sutton. I have no issue with drafting either of them. There's only one really thing I'm excited about, though, and it's tight end. And that's the man. That's the man, the myth, the legend, Greg Dulcich. And that's coming from tight end doesn't matter, man, aka me. Tight end 12 goes for ranking about 130 overall, ADP 131. This is exactly what I'm looking for in my usual strategy of punt tight end, because that is a 11th round pick. That's right in my double stack of crappy tight ends, except with Greg Dulcich, I don't think crappy applies. He is projected limited sample size last year. He had a very good run last year dealing with injuries, but when he was on the field, he caught Russell Wilson's eye, and he is healthy to start this season. Second year in the league. Got a little bit of chemistry going with Russ already. Sean Payton seems to be interested because they're talking about using him in the Joker role, aka the old Jimmy Graham role, which had value for all those years. I'm sorry, Mike, do you have a more 2010s? Do you want to go even further back? Do we need to go? If you can do that, I'll be really impressed.
No, Jimmy Graham's he was the guy I was going to go to. He fits my
Okay.
range.
Just, you let me know if you can think of anybody further back than that. We'll put that
Jeremy
back.
Shockey?
Ooh.
That might be it, actually. I think of him as
Who's
a
the
Panther more, but
Oh,
yeah.
I guess that's true, huh?
who is
he
the
was with the Giants, though.
Jared Cook? He was there, right?
Yeah, that
Oh
might have
my
been.
gosh.
That might be more recent,
Oh.
though. That might be more recent. That's not what I
Who's
asked
the
you
tight
for.
end that he lasted forever? I'll think of his
That was
name.
Jimmy Graham. That's why.
Yeah, it was Jimmy
No,
Graham for
he
a
was
really
on
long
he was
time.
on the Patriots for a while too. I'll
It'll
think
come
of
to
him.
it.
You go.
Mike will work this out. I've been very impressed so far with Mike's classic Saints knowledge. He's got all the old names. Once he got to Pierre Thomas, I'm like, oh God. I haven't thought about Pierre Thomas in like 15 years. Like Pierre Thomas was the thing when I started playing fantasy football in the early 2000s. Like, my God, man. Anyway, Greg Dulcich is the real thing to get excited about because an 11th round ADP means nothing. He's still low enough on the radar that people aren't excited about it yet. He's the guy that I could see getting not only into the top 10 of tight end, into the top 5. Down the field upside, red zone upside, running the ball upside, joker role, already has the rapport with Russ. His competition is washed up Adam Troutman and Albert O, who got benched last year because he said he didn't want to pass block.
But Troutman does have familiarity with Sean Payton.
We did cover this. He is also on that list of. He is very much on that list of names that Sean Payton likes. But I don't believe that Adam Troutman's going to be there to catch passes. He's going to be there to block, and because he's familiar with Sean Payton's offense. And Albert O crossed his own T last year when he complained to the coaching staff about wanting more targets and not wanting to block. Bye-bye. I'm amazed he's still on the team. So Greg Dulcich is my note. Like, we've been through this at this point. Russell Wilson, I can't really get excited about that. Javonte Williams, I'm fine with it. Fine with it with Samjae Perine, if it gets more expensive, I want to stay away. And Jerry Jeudy, yeah, current ADP, fine, cool. Courtland Sutton, yeah, if he has that Michael Thomas role, whatever. But the nice thing about the Broncos is the risk of the collapse is actually baked into the ADPs this year. That's the one thing you can hang your hat on with this team, is that the risk is actually baked into the price tags. But the one thing that I'm actually excited about and will want to target is Greg Dulcich in the 11th round. If I can get him in the 12th, even better. I've been getting that in drafts because people get all excited about Cole Kmet, who's going in the same range. They get all antsy in their pantsy, and they want Cole Kmet because he just signed that contract extension. Let him have it. I want Dulcich. I think the sky's the limit for that guy. For the amount of work he put in a very limited sample size. If he can stay healthy, it's exactly who I'm looking for when I punt tight end. Is a guy like Dulcich. I cannot say enough nice things about what he was able to do last year on a very limited sample. And I know there's still enough detractors and naysayers, Jason, that his value hasn't skyrocketed up yet. So what I can tell that you are similarly minded on this.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's a great value for sure. And at that point, I mean, now that Patrick is gone, there are vacated targets. And I think more often than not, he's probably going to be the one to get him because he was a favorite. Very, very quickly caught Wilson's eye and made a name for himself and had some really big weeks last year. And I mean, it's hard not to love the guy with that much hair, and that makes it look that flowing and makes me jealous every time I see it. So
speaking of Jeremy Shockey.
Benjamin Watson was the other guy I was thinking of.
He did it.
Okay.
It took him a minute, but he did it. It was Benjamin Watson. That is the guy who I was thinking of. Oh my God. He was on the Patriots. Yeah, that's absolutely who it was.
I have
100%. 100% who that was.
Yeah. I have a theory about Greg Dulcich that I agree. I like the value, and I think he could be a top 8 tight end or whatever number you want to put on it. But I do think I think he's slightly overrated because the Broncos were so bad last year that when someone actually did something, it was like, oh my God, like someone actually did something and scored a long touchdown for the Broncos, like, and then the hair and everything. So I think it's
like the fat kid at sports day. Oh my God, he did.
Yeah, exactly. So, but historically, I think like half the tight ends that finish in the top 8 come from this round, 11, 12, 13th round guy. So Dulcich definitely could be that guy.
I mean, guys going around that area, Dalton Schultz, Tyler Higbee, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, Jason's favorite, Gerald Everett. I know the face he makes whenever I say Gerald Everett is like somebody farted. Jason's boyfriend, Juwan Johnson. If you want to go back to the, actually, you could get Juwan Johnson several rounds later. Now that I look at that, but yeah, it's, to me, he fits nice and neat in my little. I just find myself getting a lot of him. He's the one Bronco that I kind of repeatedly wind up with, where it's like, I'm happy when it happens too, because he's not going to be the only tight end I get. You know what I mean? In that range, I'll get a Dulcich and a Higbee. If it flames out, who cares? It's like late 11th round, 12th round pick. You know what I mean? Early 12th round pick. I'm fine with it. It's fine. Like, if it blows up, it blows up. I don't care. Like, we'll figure it out another way. Or yeah, if you want to do Dulcich and you wait several more rounds to get Juwan Johnson, cool. If that's what floats your boat. You know what I mean? It's just, I would much rather wait and do that than deal with, overpaying to get Dalton Schultz on a bad team. So that pretty much takes us through the Broncos, guys. There's not too much more to say. It's a pretty cut and dry team. All I can really say is, just echoing what I said a minute ago, at least this year, the risk is baked into the ADPs. You're not paying sticker price like you were last year, drafting these guys at their complete top end of their value. So Denver is a little more interesting than what I think people give it credit for. Although I will say I am still anticipating this being a bad football team. Maybe not as bad as they were last year, but if they got to 10 wins, I'd be impressed. Given their division, especially. I'd be shocked if they could beat the Chargers even once. I bet they could beat them once at home.
I was like, I don't know, man. We have that issue where we just like to completely give up
Chargers
on games.
Oh, the Broncos have that issue too. They'll lose to the Raiders twice.
Well,
and I think the
Raiders have that with every team in the AFC West.
Right.
They're going to grab one of those wins unless it's just a miracle and you actually are able to pull off a sweep of them, which is almost impossible.
Yeah. So within that, I think we've kind of covered the Broncos here, folks. So in the listening audience's world, we will be back tomorrow to talk about the Detroit Lions. It's the opposite of this show. It's the polar opposite of what we just did. So we will see you tomorrow to talk about whether the Lions could actually theoretically win the division. See you tomorrow. Till then, keep up the nonsense.
I'm Tim Kitzer from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, and you can find all the guys at ImportantNonsense.com. Kaboom!